All right, so welcome everybody. Thank you for making it to our kickoff meeting. Should be an exciting season, of course, with the World Cup especially. We'll talk about some of the stressors that creates for us, but it's mostly joy, of course. The very first thing I want to do is introduce Sarah Stendal, who is a new hire for admin. Sarah, if you can hear me, can you unmute and turn your video on and say hi to everybody?
Oh yeah, sorry. I thought my video was on.
So Sarah, we just hired Sarah as a part-time outreach and admin assistant for MyXC. So kind of general admin, trying to increase our customer service both to you guys at the leadership level and to directly to membership. So she'll become kind of a registration expert as well. And then part of our efforts as growing up as an organization, she's really going to help us with things like documentation and calendaring and all those sorts of things that I'm a little bit sloppy with. So I'm really excited to have her on board to increase our sustainability and provide a little more service to you guys and our skiing families. So Sarah, do you want to just say hi and say a few things about yourself?
Yeah, hi. My name is Sarah, obviously, and I heard about the organization through my son. He participates in the SkiSparks program himself, and we really just fell in love with it. We love getting outdoors as a family, and this really helped our family feel much more comfortable with winter here since we moved here from Denver, Colorado. We were used to skiing all the time and just didn't get to do it as often here. And this program has really made it much easier for us to do. So we
Great.
love it. And I'm so happy to be here.
Yes. So Sarah has just started this week, so she isn't quite up to answering questions yet from from people, but she's definitely in the learning phase, and I think she's going to be a very quick study as well. Um, so the very first thing that I want to do is go over our a couple of dates. So the first batch of dates we're going to talk about is the registration timeline. Um, Hopefully I can figure out how to get my screen to share. And Sarah, can you give me a thumbs up if you can see the registration phases? Okay. So most of you know that for registration, especially last year, we went through kind of a phase process. And a very new feature last year was that for the first couple of phases, you couldn't register a child unless you had registered to volunteer first. And so we're sticking with that model, but I'm spreading it out a little more so we don't feel really rushed. And I also wanted to avoid MEA week because I know that can be stressful for those of you that travel during that week. And also I'm traveling during that week this year. So I just felt that it made sense to kind of use that for admin, but not have any active registrations during the MEA break week. But to go over how this works, here we are tonight on the 24th. I would like after this meeting, you guys should be pretty comfortable updating your club pages. We'll talk about that. And I would like you to do it. It shouldn't take more than 15 minutes. And I'd like, if possible, for you to do that by tomorrow. And then midweek, next week, we're going to do some testing of the whole registration system with board members and any of you leaders that are willing to do the process and kind of document feedback for me. So certainly don't jump in right away if you don't have the patience to describe any bugs or features that you think should be improved. I think the system is pretty tight right now, much, much better. I mean, we really spent all summer taking care of things, but if you want to be in that first group to give it a try, please let me know. And then a couple days after that, or the beginning of the next week, I'll open it up to everybody on the leadership team. And for this phase, for those of you that remember, once you register as a volunteer, you have to be approved. And then once you're approved in the club portals, then it kicks out an email and allows you to register your children. And so for the first round, when we're talking about leadership team positions, I'm actually the one that does the approval, because until the leader has been approved, they can't get in there to approve other people. So I'll kind of take care of the first round of approvals. And then you'll see we wait quite a ways, almost another week, to open it up. And this is a very important phase, this phase 2, to coaches, assistant coaches, and level 4 through 6 sweepers. And I'm going to add ski work sweepers this year. So when someone volunteers, they can select multiple roles, and then it's up to you as the leader to see your pending volunteers, and then you can approve them into different roles. The reason we have this entire phase 2 for coaches, assistant coaches, and the higher level sweepers is because those are really the hardest volunteer roles for us to fill. They take a little bit of skill with your skiing, typically, but for the lower levels, they really just the requirement is bravery and being able to talk to children, not necessarily skiing, especially in those first 3 levels. So again, they volunteer first, leader does the approval, and then that gives that person access to the skier registration. Now, this phase can be a little more chaotic than we want it to, because, like, let's say you get too many people that want to coach level 2 but not level 3, and so there's a little bit of admin work on your side to get everybody in the right place. You will, during this phase, because we can't completely lock it down, have people that are also volunteering to be level 2 sweepers or photographers or snack monitors. Those people should not be approved during phase 2. They actually have to wait for the open public phase. We do want to continue to promote volunteering, but most of the clubs, we really need to focus on filling these critical roles first. Now, a lot of you, by the time we get to public registration, will not have all of these coach, assistant coach positions filled. But I am hoping with adding more time in there, we can really continue to push out the messaging to people like, hey, we're still waiting for more coaches for this club, and we aren't going to open until we get more coaches signed up. So please consider volunteering. And then I'll be sending emails kind of centrally that talk about how easy it is and the training we provide to make it really easy for people to take on those volunteering roles. So we'll actually I don't know if we'll completely shut it down during MEA, but nothing new will happen during MEA week besides volunteer registration. So if you guys are out of town for 3 or 4 days, it really shouldn't matter. As long as you're back on early in the week after Monday, Tuesday, to take a good look at things, make sure you're, familiar with the people that have signed up. So for example, and this will happen every year, sometimes we have people that just select the wrong club. And so you might be, a club in Willow River, and you notice that somebody, from the West Metro signed up for your club. Well, maybe they selected the wrong thing, so we can follow up on that. So that's really what kind of this leader admin catch up is about. Or you have a coach that insists that they signed up, but you don't see them on your list. We'll have to look into that. They either signed up for the wrong club or something went wrong with their registration. So that just gives us some time to really straighten out those issues. before we open to the public on 10/25, which is a few days later than we've ever done before, which makes me a little bit nervous. It's about a week later than Three Rivers, which has a huge snow sports academy and very hectic registration. But I really think we're better off spreading things out and being comfortable with the process rather than trying to rush it any earlier. We are going to have a weight room this year. So once you're into the system, well, first of all, we're going to have a phase 0, meaning that there's going to be a period of time where people can go in and update their information from the prior year, make sure their login works. Because in all honesty, most of the problem last year were the initial logins to the system. And so I think we'll push out communication saying, hey, please make sure you understand your login. Please make sure you know which parent is the primary in your household, because that's, it also doesn't work if you have both spouses trying to do it at once, because then it confuses. You really need one primary adult in the household to do the registration. So we'll be sending out communications about that. And then once we open with this weight room, it more or less you can get everything entered, and then you kind of get in line to get to the payment portal, because that's the part that gets gummed up if there are too many people using it at once. And so you just leave your browser. We haven't gotten through all the testing on this yet, but it actually gives you some sort of estimate of time of when you'll be allowed in. And then you get the okay, and then you'll have a certain window to go in and complete the payment. It's really only that first half day, or for, I would say probably 4 hours that we're going to need the weight room at all. And so after that first day, I don't even anticipate really using the weight room. But we have, pretty much crashed the system every year for the last 4 or 5 years, even though the programmers keep saying that they're doing things to prevent that. It just has never been enough. So we're once again trying something new to kind of slow the flow of the registration down. I will be sending all these dates out, of course, in minutes for you. And also I meet with the programmers twice a week still. We have to get a few more details on how what I'm calling phase 0 will work, which is when you can go in and test your login and update basic household information. But before I move on, does anybody have any questions or ideas? This could still be changed slightly. I have not published it. So if I'm missing a concept, or if you guys have any ideas, now's the time to speak up.
Amy, I have a question.
Mhm.
Last year, I believe it was last year, there was a separate registration for outstate clubs. It was a little bit later. Is everybody together this year?
We tried to do that last year, but effectively we didn't. And so I think with the weight room, we're just going to go all at once. The reason that's hard is because the communication can get difficult, especially if I'm sending out centralized emails. And so I feel like we should just go all at once.
Okay.
So if you're an outstate club and you're not worried about how much rental equipment you have, meaning there's no reason for your parents to be uptight and register on the first day, you should be communicating that with your families.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. I
have a question.
Yep.
If a new family, we frequently get questions from people who say, "Oh, we want to register this year. We haven't done it before." So they're not already going to be in the system to receive these emails about how registration is going to work. Is there any kind of, I don't know, a communication list we can send them to so that they get that that update of when those dates are, or should we communicate with them with that directly?
We have a newsletter sign up.
Okay.
So on the footer of the website, right here, they can click on this
Okay.
and
Yeah.
that will put them on the list.
Okay, great.
We've rearranged this a little bit, and I will say this again, but right here is one of the most important things, this leadership login under quick links. Because some of you will remember last year you had to type in an admin URL. So this
Yeah.
takes the place of that. So that's much easier to use.
Great.
But newsletter sign up, those have been rolling in, and the very next communication that I send out, to all of last year's membership will also start to include people that have signed up new for the newsletter. Okay, any other questions on the registration phases? I know that's a lot. I will type this up in a way that is clearer. This is kind of my draft. But just know that it's spread out, and know that the leaders will have to do some approval. And again, you're not approving everybody. You're just approving a certain type of volunteer for that first phase, or the second phase, excuse me. And then we go from there.
Amy, I have a question.
Yep.
For kind of similar to the previous question, if I mean, we can send an email out to previous members about the phases and all that, and of course they'll get your emails, but for people that are not currently members and we just want to try to get more folks involved in that area, what do you recommend for trying to advertise this?
So it depends a little bit on where you're advertising. So for example, if you know they're brand new skiing families, like nobody has skied, then you really want to just advertise the opening day registration, versus if you are, for example, advertising to the younger siblings of kids on the ski team where the parents might know a little bit about skiing, because in that case, you would probably try to get those parents to volunteer. So then they would come in, maybe in phase 2, if there's any possibility of them coaching. But for the most part, a new family is going to come in on 10/25. A quick note on that. We'll look at the club pages in a bit, but you all have hidden spots on your registration rosters. So during this opening day on 10/25, about 2/3 of our clubs will fill. They'll hit their inventory limit for membership. But all of them have hidden spots for late recruits or mistakes, or let's say you find a coach later and their kids aren't registered. So we have all of the clubs have a little cushion built in, and also primarily for outreach, because if you're recruiting new families, getting a family that doesn't know anything about skiing to be aware of skiing at the end of October is a big stretch. And so that's also why we've hidden some of those spots, because we know it's probably likely that it would be December, perhaps, if you were really recruiting new families, that you would get them registered.
Amy, I have a quick question also.
Mhm.
In terms of sending out an email to our families ourselves, when are we allowed to do so? Because I know you said there might be a little wiggle still with the phases for dates.
I will probably send out I'll meet with the programmers on Tuesday to confirm this, and I'll send a final email to the leaders so the dates are set.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay, now we have another confusing date spreadsheet. This is actually the same date matrix that we looked at the Leadership Summit in the spring. However, and so what we're looking at here is basically every winter weekend that we have reliable snow, that's not also Christmas. So Some of you might want to start this December 30, 31st weekend. I'm guessing most of you will start this January 6th, 7th weekend. So again, depending on if you're a Saturday, Sunday club. We have a couple of difficulties this year. One is this Battle Creek JNQ. I'm going to be meeting with the Battle Creek leaders, and anybody on the east side of St. Paul that wants to join us to talk about this weekend, please let me know, because it will be unlikely that we can meet at Battle Creek at our regular time that weekend, so we need to adjust. That's not like totally uncommon at Worth. We often will switch for events, but here's the big one: the February 17th and 18th with the World Cup. I would think that most of our metro clubs will not meet, and actually probably a lot of the outstate clubs won't meet either if you think you have a substantial number of people wanting to attend the World Cup. I don't think it's going to be possible to do both in one day, no matter how close you are, because it's going to be, in my opinion, a bit exhausting just to deal with the parking and the shuttling and the watching of, you know, a multi-hour event, and then, you know, walking back and shuttling. And there's just no way, you know, even if you were done by, you know, 3 o'clock, that you're going to make it anywhere to go skiing later that day. So because of that, a lot of you will have to reflect on this weekend being skipped in your club schedule. And then the following weekend is the Berkey. And then because of this, I've reflected again on, I had hoped to bring the MyXC Youth Festival back on March 2nd, but I think it's not a good idea, because that also then puts pressure on this end of the season for you guys to get your 7th or 8th meeting in. So a combination of, you know, this weekend being really difficult, falling on New Year's Eve, and then the other end taking a weekend away for the festival, I'm not feeling really good about. This will be SkiWorks. We'll still have this event, but it's going to be focused on the SkiWorks level, not a full-blown festival. Let's get 1,000 little kids there. And so that kind of opens this up for you guys to have a little more flexibility in your schedule. You can a few clubs skip Berkey weekend. It's actually not that common to skip Berkey weekend. It depends on, usually a club would poll their coaches to figure out what sort of coaching coverage they have that weekend. But remarkably, we don't actually overlap a lot with the racing world. So most clubs meet that weekend, especially on Sunday afternoon. So again, the dates are really confusing start, confusing middle. And because of that, I'm going to try to make the end not confusing. But you all still have decisions to make. I've gone in and put this whole range into everybody's dates. So a few of you had that question, how come my dates are this? I tried to narrow it down to kind of your options, but you guys are going to have to go in and tweak the exact schedule, and we'll go over how to do that. Yeah. So does anybody have any questions about this, which will also be sent out in tomorrow or the next day?
Amy, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
If we have a weather cancellation, and so we have, like, say, our plan is to be done the weekend, the last session is February 25th, and we've only done 7 technically because we had a weather cancellation. Do we have to make that up?
You do not. Here's the deal with we put right in registration or in our policies, we don't guarantee 8 sessions. We don't guarantee makeups. But the other thing is, you know, these clubs are meant to be social. So sometimes, like if it's a lack of snow versus if it's 20 below zero. Those are different types of cancellations. If it's the last day and for some reason you can't ski, but the weather is warm enough, you might still choose to meet, to hand out pins or to play games or, even on foot. You don't, just because you can't ski doesn't mean you can't meet, because the point is kind of being outside and gathering. You aren't obligated to do the backup, but I would, if possible, recommend that clubs have a backup day in mind. If you're on man-made snow, that's easier because you do know that you're going to have snow into March. If you're on a natural snow venue, that's not as simple. And so, but some winters it's going to be easier to have an extra day in there. We survey clubs at the end of the year, and we do ask how many times you've met or if you've rescheduled, because we do keep track of that data because some of our funders want to know. And really for them, if we have a disaster year, which I guess COVID kind of was, they want to see 4 or 5 meetings, just because the science behind that is that's how much you need to kind of show some skill development. And so for example, if you have to schedule 2, or if you have to cancel 2 meetings, you might want to try a little harder to figure out how you can get 1 more in somehow. Typically though, if you have to cancel 1, I would say that that's not the end of the world. And the weather, as we know, is the most stressful part of this job. Deciding what to do on some of those weekends when it's, barely warm enough. And we also know, especially like for those of you that might have a backup option on man-made snow, but somewhere else, you will never get, 100% participation if you move the venue or move the time. But we try, and you usually will get about 60 or 70%. People are a little bit more used to it now, traveling to man-made snow if there's no natural snow. In the beginning, it was truly a disaster. We wouldn't even get 50%, but it has it's stabilized at about 70% transfer rate now. So any other thoughts or questions about the calendar? Okay, let's see now. Where are we? Now we're going to look at our club web pages a little bit. So when you come into the club page, everyone can click this login. This is a little confusing for me because this is my work email. You guys, it's your personal email has the admin access, so not your club email. So you want to use your personal email and you want to log in, and then you will come, if you have your own, especially your own kids, you will come to this dashboard, but that's not where you want to be for your club info. Again, you want to go to this footer and click the leadership login. You guys will see not all of this. When you come in, you should only see your club page, right? Sorry, I'm gonna get to my club list here. It'll look a little bit more like this, and you will, I think, see last year's dates and this year's dates, because I've set everybody up for this next season. It won't, again, it's a little confusing because it will say 2023, but it's December 30th, 2023, so it's this winter. We'll take a, so I need to get this out of the way. We will, let's pick a club to take a look at. So you're going to click your little edit icon, and this is what we call the club dashboard. We have a new training video here, and I'm going to try not to repeat everything that the video says. But I am gonna point out what I want you guys to double check and to correct when you come in here. So when you select your club, you want to make sure that you are in the correct season. If you click this edit button, you can see the 2 seasons here. So if you want to email last year's roster, you'll click last year's season dates. And then if you, once you're in last year's, you'll see everything's grayed out. You can't edit anything, but you can message last year's roster from there. But for the most part, what we're talking about right now is setting up this year's system. So again, I'm in my 23-24 dates. Most of this stuff, again, I filled in what I can. This land acknowledgement is for those of you that want to do some research, and we have board members that will help you with this, how the specific land where you're meeting was used by Native Americans before we got here. But we can help you come up with a land acknowledgement as you want, if you would like. The backup plan means not so much for cold weather if you're canceling, but if you have an extra date if you want to put in here, or if you know you have low snow and you will be moving to man-made snow, you can put a few details in there. The Metro clubs, we coordinate that, and I don't have, well, we can look at last year's schedule for a pretty good guess on that. You shouldn't need to change any of this for now. The statuses are, these are the registration phases, but we'll do that kind of bulk. This is very important that you guys fill this in for me. So this is not the volunteer approval. This is to maintain our leadership team communications list. So this is actually a lookup. So as you type, you'll see people that are in the system, right? So if you're trying to enter someone that you're pretty sure was a volunteer last year and they're not showing up, please email me, because sometimes it has to do with the exact name that they used when they registered. You can see a little bit more information if you click on the little icon, right? And then this is actually a really important thing. This little gear means that this person has admin access. You cannot grant that. You have to email me, or I'll teach Sarah how to do this soon, how to grant somebody admin access so they can get to this screen. We don't, most clubs will have 1 or 2 people with admin access. I'd like that to probably top out at 4, just because it's it gets a little out of hand maintaining the admin access for everybody. Yeah, so this is a new feature. It didn't really work last year, but again, it really helps us keep track of how we're filling these leadership roles. And this is where the communication email list will be built from. Skill levels offered, this is very easy to change, but you guys should, if I've done it wrong, you should at least tell me, or we should have a discussion about that. One of the very most important things you can do right now is to make sure that your volunteer roles are correct, because once we start to register volunteers, we don't want to edit this too much because it will cause problems. So these are all filled in off of a template. We are also, it's actually broken right now. I'm anticipating this ticket will be cleared early next week. You can also add your own unique roles for your club. But let's say right now you know that you don't need 12 junior coaches, you only need 8. You can go in and change this number. Or let's say you know you don't need an equipment manager because there's no equipment in your club. You can definitely X that out to delete it. Make sure you're hitting save up here. But again, really reflect on this. I have a couple of clubs that are going to experiment with being more specific with their coach titles, like actually putting in level 1 coach, level 2 coach. I don't want everyone to do that right away, and I'll kind of show you why on the volunteer screen. But I think if you're interested in experimenting with it this year, let me know and we'll talk about it a little bit. But I'll show you well, actually, let's go look at it right now. One of the reasons for that is when you're in the volunteer screen and you see how this is set up, if you've now have 6 different types of coaches, 6 different types of assistant coaches, and 6 different types of sweepers, this is going to not be a very easy screen to use. So I think there are some pros and cons for really drilling down into those coach roles versus kind of keeping track and moving people around to, how you want to use them, which I do realize for most of you will require your own spreadsheet. So it is an individual decision. I'm just trying to kind of talk through the good and the bad of that. So again, this details screen, we'll finish looking at these numbers. You guys can fill in whatever you want. This is like open text box for your pages. Don't get too carried away with the formatting because the formatting is always a little touchy. And then these areas are very important for you to review. So the pricing, you shouldn't change without talking to me. I think I got that right. The public registration limit is when the club capacity will turn off in registration by itself. These are your hidden spots for late recruits or problem solving later outreach. You should check that I have the ski pass requirement correct. I know this is confusing, so please don't change this without talking to me because I do think I got these correct. But it's pretty subtle, and these do have ages on them too, right? So it's not, sometimes, the youngest kids don't need a pass, sometimes they do. Same thing with the equipment. The equipment pricing is set for most of you. It's different for Metro and Outstate, and then there are a few exceptions above that. If you're using, the online classic rentals, please make sure that I selected the right one. So club rentals online is what we need here. Rental limit, again, if you want to go up here, you need to clear that with me first because those are all budgeted numbers. Most of you don't have skate equipment, so this -1 is just disabling this on the club page. And most of you don't have ski passes. I just want to reiterate that this ski pass is we have, I think, 3 clubs that have built-in ski passes to their registration. And it's not a normal ski pass. So typically this arrangement would be used for a club that negotiated a special ski pass price for their 8 and olders, but to only ski during their 8 club sessions. So it's not like a pass that you can use all the time. If it's just a regular ski pass, we need to educate people on buying those externally through the right venue. Again, this is a little more complicated, and it's usually when there's been some negotiation between the club and the venue on how they, it's like a discounted ski pass for limited use. So to the schedule tab, which is very important, I've already kind of trimmed down the range. So it's up to you guys to select or unselect these days. When you decide on your schedule, you can change the time up here. You can click this to update the time for all of your dates. A few of you might have certain dates that are at a different time. And so you could change one day at a time if you really wanted to, but I don't actually recommend that. If you were going to communicate to your parents that a different weekend was at a different time, you would do that via email and very loudly and often. So for the most part, times will be the same for every date. This screen was really glitchy last year, but it's been working really well for us in the testing. But if you have any problems, let me know. Make sure you're hitting save. And then that automatically takes you back to your main club page. So the members, nothing's going to fill in here yet because we don't have any members, but I do want to point out that clicking on these titles will sort by these columns, which is a nice feature. This button here, the download registration list, will give you a CSV or an Excel spreadsheet of not only this data, but some additional data as well. And the volunteer list has that as well, a download, so you can get a little more organized data to manipulate how you would like. The communication, once you send an email, it will show up in the communications tab. And then the notes is kind of for between you guys and headquarters. So if we're changing prices, or if we want, this was kind of a default, but if we want a record of the discretionary funds or anything like that, that will be in the notes. Yeah. So, and then you have your K counter, which will give you a spreadsheet of anybody that's used the K counter. And this, again, this new training video will be really important. All right, I think I have talked a lot, and it's probably time to ask questions, or for you guys to ask questions.
I have a question. Last year, we could not see the addresses of the families. Will we be able to see that this year?
I think we have added that, and also you guys can change skill level this year. I know we had that
Great.
feature originally, but it didn't make the cut last year, but we've got that working now.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Amy, can you remind me, you were talking about the leaders, you need to approve the leaders. So in order for me to get approved, I just have to go to the volunteer and do the application.
So yes, I didn't emphasize that enough. Everybody needs to register every year as a, or I should say apply every year as a volunteer. We don't do background checks every year. I actually have to look up our rule. It's every 2 or 3 years. I don't remember. But everybody needs to do the application because it includes the refresher on the safe sport. And so, yes, that is what you have to do. You have to just do and you can't do it right now because I will send out a do it now email, but because the clubs are not in the right phase. But then, yes, I approve. And then once the leader is approved, they can take on the approval process for the rest of their club.
So just a follow-up question on that, Amy. Since I as a future leader won't be approved until whatever that date was, I forget. Can I send an email out to the previous member list with the reminders, in advance of that?
Because that's tied to your admin access.
Okay.
Have you been into your club page like this? Yeah.
I have,
So
yeah.
you can get this far, you can send an email.
Okay.
Amy, with that safe sport thing, do we have to watch that video again about the coach grooming the
No.
kids and all that?
No.
Okay.
So our safe sport, it's just part of the volunteer application, and it's just it's a quick PowerPoint, very specific to what we do, and then
Okay.
a 3 or 4 question quiz. So literally it's like 5 minutes.
Okay.
Amy, I have a question about the director versus leader role. I know last year I missed all the meetings, so I probably missed the memo on that. What is the difference between the director and leader roles?
So in a small club like yours, Kitty, you might do everything. It might be easier.
Okay.
But in a large club, basically a director is almost just like admin support for the leader. They might make the name tags or count the bibs or
Okay.
just take on a few tasks to make the leader's job easier, help with attendance maybe. But the leader is always the main contact with the parents.
Got
So
it.
that's kind of the distinction. You are free to break up those tasks however you want, but the leader should remain the main contact with parents.
Okay. Right. I just wanted to make sure that if I was asking for assistance on something, I was providing the right,
Yeah, and we do have job descriptions on under the volunteer tab on the website. We have role summaries and longer descriptions for all of the volunteer roles. So that is I should mention that's a little bit of a risk if you guys are adding unique volunteer roles to your club under these volunteer role requirements. You might want to mention that in the body of your website saying, hey, our club also needs these volunteers, and give a little bit of a description, because I will be referring, multiple times to all of our families, like here are our volunteer role descriptions, and they're really the core volunteer roles. So if you're adding additional, you should think about a short job description for those and add those to your page somewhere.
One other question on that main first page that you see where it says the SkiSparks in your club. It has the email and then a phone number listed. Where are you updating the phone number from? Because it's
Very good question. A few of you have asked me that today. So the clubs are considered organizational membership, and that phone number, we've decided not to make it public. So that isn't really maintained, but it was intended to be the phone number of the venue.
Oh, okay.
But it's not, we've decided not to make it public. So it doesn't actually show up anywhere.
Oh, nobody else is seeing.
Yeah.
That. Okay, great.
We will have to think about we'll look to see. So if you click up here, this will take you to the web page. And what shows up here is the generic club email, but you'll notice no phone number. And I know of some of you would prefer maybe a personal email here, a couple of you, and I'll see if I can figure out how to do that. But it's also not a big deal. You can always, this is the body text, there isn't very much written in the box, but you can always reiterate information down here as well. So this is kind of your free form. This is all from template up here, but then you can do whatever you want in that lower part. And you will kind of notice here that there was no land acknowledgement or backup text filled in. So it just kind of skips it. So it doesn't leave like a blank space, but if you fill something in, it will just add it to this box area. Yeah. And then the maps. Take a peek at your map, make sure that we have the address right and everything is looking correct there. Sometimes we've changed, which part of the park you meet in or something like that. So you might want to take a peek at your maps. And I would have to change that. So just let me know if something seems amiss. Any more questions on this club page? Wow, you guys are doing great. Yeah, so make sure you watch this training video. And then I think you should be on your way. Again, the only open bug that I know of right now is adding unique roles. I will send out an email when that's correct, the volunteer roles. If you guys encounter anything else that isn't working like you think it should, please let me know. I really have the attention of the programmers right now, and we want to really stay on top of these tickets this year before we get kind of desperate about it. But I think we can stop talking about the club page. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and we can just have a general question and answer for things you want to know about the season, anxieties you might have, equipment needs, whatever it might be. Yeah, just ask away.
Hi, Amy, Will Schroer. Quick question about the map.
Mm-hmm.
It's showing a red L, which I don't recognize. Is that supposed to be our location?
I don't know. I will have to look. I didn't notice that just now when I was looking at the sample page, so I wonder what a red L is. They're Google addresses. It's some sort of Google plugin, but sometimes it's not as intuitive as you would think. But I'll take a closer look at that later and let you know.
Perfect. Thank you.
I will go over a few of the bugs that I can remember that we fixed. This doesn't happen very often, but it will be easier for a family to have kids in more than one club this year. So we didn't really have that capability last year, which mostly affects SkiWorks, but it also affects SkiSparks, because in the metro, sometimes with scheduling, kids end up in different clubs. We're improving a lot more kind of behind the scenes ability to correct things like rentals, no rentals, one kid with rental, both kids without rent. I mean, there were a million combinations when we kind of got down to it. So figuring that out. We will eventually try to streamline getting the budget, like the letting you guys know your discretionary fund amount. I haven't worked on that in a while. We'll probably get through registration, but we have a rough plan for how that will work. And most of the other bug fixes were truly just kind of functional. We did improve the flow of registration quite a bit, and there are numbered steps to it now. It was too freeform last year, and that confused people. One of the most common customer service questions we had is the address, the billing address on the credit card. We've also made that more obvious, so it shows up on, it pulls the address from your parent info screen, but we've made it more evident now because people could never figure out where to edit their address. So that was a common problem. Yeah, those are the obvious ones I can think of. But yeah, we have been working all summer, so I know there's a lot more. But things like adding address to the volunteer list and the member list. Yeah, and just on and on with a bunch of those. Yeah.
Amy, I think I heard you say that the volunteers could register for more than one volunteer role. Is that possible?
I will have to review that. I don't remember. I know that that's been talked about. But what often happens, just to review for everybody, is you'll get somebody that says, I will coach, and then they have to actually select their skill level, and they might select level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then it's up to the leader to kind of use them where you need them. You don't always assume that they want to coach where their kid is. So sometimes that might take some follow-up on your part. I say it's 50-50, whether a kid wants their parent coaching them or not. So we don't really have a rule or anything on that. It's, I would say up to the parent, but it's probably more up to the child. And again, just to review, if possible, leaders should not be assigned coaches. So they should not be, for example, the lead level 3 coach. you can definitely coach as a sub or help out if someone doesn't show, but you guys as leaders and leadership team, you're much better off being kind of backup than you are a primary coach.
Piggybacking off of that, like if there isn't really a place, unless we're creating our own new unique things, there's not a place necessarily for them to say where that they might be open to multiple levels when they're registering.
You will see that. Yep. If you click on a coach, they select multiple levels.
Oh, it does. It
Yeah,
shows.
it should show that for you.
All right. All right. Thank you.
Last year, we had to have certification, and it was supposed to be attached to the volunteer or coach as they completed their certification. Do we still have to do that this year, and is it going to be visible?
We've worked on the volunteer dashboard being a lot more user-friendly. The concussion, what I think you're talking about, the concussion training, and the concussion training isn't required every year. It's every 3 years, I believe. And that is built into the system. So the system knows that there's a 3-year expiration on that. So anybody that had it last year won't need it again. So it will be a little more seamless. But the bigger thing is making it easier for someone to go in and add it later, because some people don't want to do it, as part of their volunteer application. So we've tried to make the volunteer portal more friendly for them to go in and upload the certificate later, and then it should be more visible. But we should do more testing on that too. I'm taking a few notes.
Earlier you had a question from Amy Hamlin from Ski Tigers about volunteers having multiple roles. I have a question about changing a role for a person. Will we be able to do that this year? And like if that person's skier moves to a different role, if they need to move from one role to another, can we do that?
Yes, we could actually do that last year. The only thing that hung it up is, like, if you went from snack coordinator to coach, you had to have the concussion training. So sometimes it wasn't as easy as you wanted it to be if someone didn't have the concussion certificate in. So we didn't necessarily improve that because it was working last year, but again, improving the volunteer portal view for the volunteer so they can make sure that they get that certification taken care of should make it easier on your side.
Thank you.
Yep.
Amy, last year we were able to get a couple of your folks from your team up in Duluth for a coaches training. What's the chances of getting that again?
Tom would like to come again, and I think that I haven't had a chance to email you guys. I think it's the 2nd. Is that the first Saturday in December? But I should send an email to the Northern coaches this week about that. And then we're also going to try potentially to do a dryland training even in November in the South, in the Winona La Crosse area. We're kind of out of potentially snowy weekends, but I'm hoping we can find a date in November for a Southern training too. I would say the same setup though at Spirit Mountain, kind of I don't know what Tom did last year, was a 5 or 6 hour training with a lunch break, I think.
Yeah, it was something close to that.
Yeah. So it would be similar this year, hopefully inviting everyone within a couple hour drive.
Any chance you can do some videotaping of some of that?
That's a good point. I will see. And, actually, if we don't videotape that, when we do the Metro training, which are short, kind of 45-minute level 1, 45-minute level 3, we will for sure videotape some of that.
And do we have a date for when the Metro one is yet?
The Metro one, yes, and Sarah will be helping me get our MYSL or MyXC dates figured out. But I think it's December 9th is the Nordic opener at Elm Creek, and then we typically do the very next day, the 10th, as the Metro training. And we've changed the format of that since COVID, but people like it. So again, the Northern training is kind of one long day, couple hours with a lunch break and a couple more hours. But what we do for the Metro training are 1 hour, and you sign up individually for the hours depending on what you want to focus on. You can sign up for more than one. But people tend to like that kind of in and out, and you can still whatever, do your errands or date night or something.
Amy, this is Eric Jurdy with Hiawatha.
Yep.
Could we get the discounted passes for Metro clubs
Yes.
rolling a little bit sooner? I had some coaches who were really on me last year when we didn't have that together and there was snow on the ground and they wanted to ski.
Yeah, that's usually a hang up with the Loppet, but I will start that discussion right away with them. There's about an inch of paperwork that has to happen before we get those discount codes, but I will definitely try to get those sooner.
Thank you.
I have a suggestion. I don't know how other people do their names in their bibs. Do you all insert the kids' names in the plastic bibs on colored paper so that they know what levels they're in?
So
Okay.
I can speak a little bit to what I did that was new that worked really well for my club last year. I took my spreadsheet of everything and I did a mail merge and I printed off like 4x6 stickers. And so I put those onto colored pieces of paper that were colored for the skill level. So it had the name, it also had like L1, L2, L3 printed on there. But then on the back side, I also put an identical sized label that had the contact information, emergency contact information for the skiers. So if we had a skier who came up who I can't find my mom, my dad, they're there at the end, all we had to do was pull their name tag out, flip it over, and we had the phone numbers of who to call right there.
That's an excellent idea.
So that worked really well, and it saved having my director have to handwrite every single name for 80 or 90 participants.
Yeah. Oh, right. And I see our Battle Creek leader is adding pronouns. And I'm actually going to have to check if we improved the pronoun selection as part of the registration for the skiers. I remember that coming up last year, and I don't remember if we fixed it or not. That's one of those things
last year, it would allow people to, male, female, or other, or something like that. And so I did an individual reach out to each parent that was the case. Also, for anybody who checked that they had a disability, I did an individual reach out to discuss and just set up so that we used correct pronouns and we were prepared for any, disability that, was going to be present. And I found those individual personal touches reaching out in, November, really helped build a bridge with, those families.
That's a really good point. And also kind of exciting news for you guys, because all of a sudden we've figured out how to do this and how to reach out. We've been making ski walkers for kids, which is like a regular, aluminum walker that we put skis on. And we have, I think, 3 different kids. I can't remember the situation of Battle Creek. Maybe Kirsten, you can speak to that, but they work really well for kids with that are more severe with Down syndrome and just don't have the balance or the comfort, and they get this walker, man, and they like really go, and it really allows them to fully participate. Now, you're not going to be going up and down steep hills, but we do have a way of making these in the warehouse now. And so we have 3 of them in circulation now that I think are pretty used quite often. But that's a really good tip for you guys. So if you get any parent questions about that, limb deficiencies are really no problem. If you don't have both arms, or if you don't even have either arm, that's really fine. It doesn't take a lot of adjustment to our curriculum. If it's a lower limb deficiency or somebody that needs a prosthetic, we can often work. What we would do in that situation is make sure they had equipment that they could keep through the season, that they can adjust to make it work for them. But from your part as a leader, it's kind of nice because you don't really have to do anything different in the curriculum. So those kids are really the easiest to integrate. And then the ski walkers have made it terrific for some kids with some more complicated developmental disabilities as well.
Yeah, Amy, I can talk about that. Yeah, we had a student or a skier last year who had developmental disabilities and then also had balance issues. And so she used the ski walker. And we did end up deciding to have a coach just for her because of the level of her needs. It would have been difficult for her to join in the other groups, and that actually worked really well. She loved her coach, and then the coach was able to really tailor everything to her.
Yeah, fantastic.
And then she had 2 younger siblings who participated in the other groups. I think you're level 1 and level 3.
Yeah. So for these families, it's like fantastic that they can find an activity that they can all do together. So we get tons of praise for these efforts. Great. All right, you guys. Well, it's 8:07. Wonderful questions. I'll be getting an email out in a day or two to kind of summarize what we've talked about. And as usual, you can email me with questions. I'm actually pretty caught up in my inbox right now. Yeah, I can't wait for winter. I hope the same is true for you. I guess one update on World Cup tickets. I know a lot of us didn't get our World Cup tickets, and I've sent out some emails to our mailing list. Make sure that you're signing up on the Loppet Cup webpage to get more information. They're going to be releasing tickets in about 2 weeks. But on top of that, MYSL is guaranteed about 1,000 for each day tickets for late registering families. So we will also have a little fail safe for people that don't get their tickets now, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
I have one other question. At the spring summit, I thought I remember something about there being an alternative bib option for the older kids for level 5 and 6. Did that end up not happening?
No, we have a design we're working on, and I'm just working on final sizing. So I am actually hoping to get, I don't know if I'm going to go ahead and order enough for everybody, but certainly we'll test those. They're not cheap. We're looking at like $15 a bib or something for a Lycra bib. So I think they should stay with the club. But also, I'm probably going to go with just a combined color skate bib. So they're not going to be the pink and teal color, because then I thought that was too complicated, because some of the clubs combine their skating levels. I know some of you don't, but the skating levels are usually small, and I didn't think it would be super detrimental. I mean, most of you are dealing with your skate kids not wearing any bib at all right now. So I feel it's a step in the right direction if we have some sort of, and they won't be name tagged either. So they'll be a little bit cooler. I don't.
We
don't know.
had some of ours just wearing the coach ones, but
Yeah,
in their
yeah.
color. So
So we'll get, you know, a kind of a medium-sized batch to experiment to see what people think, because I mean, they're not going to be perfect. You won't have a name tag option. I think, you know, we'll see how it goes with it being, you know, one color for both 5 and 6. If that's a disaster, then, you know, maybe we can order a different color next year. I mean, there are lots of ways we could go with it. So, but we'll definitely get something to play with this year. Also, tons of great merchandise, new merchandise. We're going to have metal mirror coffee mugs. We're going to have no-sew patches. We're going to have water belts. Yeah, I feel like I'm missing a few things too, but I'm pretty happy with how the merchandise stuff is coming together for this year.
So I missed the understanding about the skate bibs. All of our kids have bibs on.
Yeah,
They
and
don't
that's
have the
fine.
plastic ones for the little kids after level 3. They have the tie-on ones that look like race bibs, and they're perfectly happy with those.
And that is correct. Yeah. So where we get a complaint is sometimes in level 5, 6 with what are viewed as the little kid bibs, the plastic
Right, we don't,
vinyl ones.
yeah.
So if you have another alternative, you're set.
Okay, yeah, but we couldn't get along without having the kids' names on them.
Yeah. Yeah, and we can think of ways. I mean, stickers would work fine. We just have to remember to take them off at the end of the season, or before you wash them or whatever.
Right, yeah. We slide them in a plastic just like the other ones.
Yeah.
Okay. And could you stay on after? So I want to ask you about the JNQ at Coleraine, whether we should cancel
a
for that
few of
weekend.
you, yeah, if we have any East Side leaders, we can also stay and talk a little bit about the JNQ weekend in Battle Creek as well. But I think the rest of you, or if anybody wants to stay on and ask questions, but I think I'm going to stop recording. And yeah, nice to see you guys. Send me some emails. And yeah, sounds good.